we all know Pyrocynical, the man, the myth, the legend.
Hey, sir! Hey, sir! Hey!
Oh, my pancreas.
Come on, Pyro, we need it. Even my calculator needs it. Where is Petscop 2? Where is Petscop 2? Pyro, the creeper is coming. Oh my god, he's making Petscop 2. He can't hear us. Oh my god.
This is so sad.
If you could list the top 10 things that I never wanted to do.
When you
It
see
sounds
Pyro
like
loading
it sounds
new
like the
video,
guy that's
when
not
it's still...
Petscop. Some of you may know
He's the guy that made this
Petscop
video. My brain hurt.
Calm down, 7-year-olds. Go play Fortnite, and then I'll ring the dinner bell when it's ready.
So Pyro won't do this, and I had no better idea, so here we are.
Petscop is a masterpiece.
Where did he leave off? Video 10, okay. Right, so just a disclaimer before we start this. If you think I've copied any of this video, or any of the ideas or theories in it from other people, it's a coincidence, unless it's building on something Pyro said in the original video. I haven't looked at anyone else's videos aside from the game theory ones, and I'm going to try and just think about those. So yeah, as far as I'm aware, my ideas in here are all original, and if someone else has already said them, then I apologise. It's a coincidence, and great minds think alike. Anyway, one thing I don't know if anyone's noticed is that the icon for the channel is now this. A dark pathway that looks to me like one of the road tunnels from video I think 6, but with Paul's character. But in the olden days, it wasn't that old, a while ago, Paul's character wasn't there. I don't know how significant this may be, but it's something. Also, the About tab for the entire channel have changed. It used to say, Raina gave this gift to us on Christmas 1997 and 2000. It was the single longest day of our lives. We were all certain he was dead at the time. He had been missing since June 1997 and 2000. We're not as concerned about these things now. Please enjoy the recordings. We do. Smiley face. Now it says, some select Petscop recordings. In a way, recordings have the power to raise the dead. They're kind of scary. Thank you for watching. Smiley face. This will come up again later. So, Petscop 11, uploaded December 25th, 2017, with the lengthy description reading, everything we wish to say is below. The purpose of this YouTube channel is to preserve and display the recordings within the video game Petscop while keeping some of their content private. They were first given to us as a Christmas gift many years ago. The game had an interesting journey before and after that day. Paul created some additional recordings in 2017 as a way to show Petscop gameplay to his friend. He created this account in order to upload those additional recordings in video format. He later passed ownership of the channel to us, but continued to record himself at our strong suggestion. Though he had issues with the arrangement, these have finally been settled. Please enjoy the recordings in Petscop. We do. Smiley face. Which actually provides a lot of information that I almost overlooked while writing this video. It also ties into the very start of this first video. The video starts what seems to be midway through Paul's monologue, clearly talking to someone. At first you could assume it to be his YouTube audience until you hear him say things like tied in some way to me through you and when was the last time I saw any of you at all. The second one makes it seem like he's not talking to the audience, but also not to one person.
It made, I was shocked at first, but it made sense, especially considering where I found the game in the first place. That would be tied in some way to me through you. And I'm trying to think, when was the last time I saw any of you at all?
This could tie back to the old About tab referring to Petscop being given to us, showing more than one person. The description also says they were first given to us as a Christmas gift, etc, etc. However, this description also goes on to talk about the ownership of the channel being passed on to us, leading me to believe that the us throughout this description is different to the us in the old channel About page before this video was uploaded. The former seeming more like a family, and the latter being whoever is now in charge of the channel and who also presumably changed the About page. Also, in the description, when it says they were given to us, it's unclear whether it's referring to the game itself or Paul's footage of it, as it's the footage that is being referred to in the sentence prior. But the bottom line is, Paul was recording the video specifically to show his friend, which explains why he seemed to be talking to just one person in the early videos, but did indeed run the channel himself as a kind of afterthought of, well, I may as well upload these to YouTube. Moreover, what is this, an English essay? The description says, while keeping some of their content private, which explains the sudden cuts and edits in this video and the ones after it, suggesting more private aspects of the video that have been removed, which would make sense considering the personal and serious tone of this video. This also links back to the new description, which says some select recordings, so not all of them. So we don't even have all the material, just when you thought this couldn't get any more difficult to analyse. Anyway, that went on a bit. Let's carry on with the video itself and try and unpack more of this interesting journey before and after that day. So, while walking around seemingly aimlessly, Paul talks about ignoring signs along the way because something would have been a totally ridiculous idea to him. He then goes on to mention finding his room, which we can assume to be his room in the child library from the past videos. On the face of it, it seems like he must have been talking about him having a room in the game being a totally ridiculous idea to him, but I think it could be a little more than that.
Signs along the way, that I ignored, because it would have been a completely ridiculous idea to me. But when I found my room...
You see, he goes on to say that after first being shocked, it made sense, considering where he found the game in the first place.
Well, I was shocked at first, but it made sense.
We've never been explicitly told where this was, but we know from the old description that the game was initially given to us, that being the us including Paul, because we know he was in charge of the channel when that about was up, on Christmas 1997 and 2000 by Rayner, who we can for now at least assume made the game. Well, this doesn't make complete sense in terms of timing, by which I mean it being 2 years, but that doesn't make sense, but more on that later. It shows the game was given to them, including Paul, specifically, personally, which would fit with it making sense for him to have found his room in there. And he goes on to say that it would make sense to be tied to me through you, showing the significance of whoever the friend is that he's recording these for, which could potentially be Rayner himself.
They would be tied in some way to me through you.
If we look back at the first Petscop video, Paul's opening lines are,
"This is just to prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found."
I think it's possible that Paul, friends with Rayner, forgot about the game sometime after getting it on that Christmas, presumably after 2000, the second date on that old about page, and then all these years later in 2017 found it lying around somewhere, sort of remembered it, tried out and discovered the start of the underworld, so to speak, contacted Rayner, who didn't believe him, causing him to record all these videos to show him. Hence,
"Prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found."
back in video 11 he talks about being a little kid back in 1999, meaning he was even littler, we're talking Leo size here, in 97, and not that much bigger, obviously by 2000.
1999. I was a kid. I was a small kid. Tiny kid.
Meaning that regardless of which date we use from the About page to decide when he first got and played the game, he was probably too little to actually figure out how to logically catch the initial pets, meaning he never came across the darker side. He could have enlisted other family members' help, with none of them being able to figure it out. You can picture it now, the whole family crowded around the PS1 for hours on end, trying to catch these pets, maybe making progress occasionally, but never truly making significant progress, for hours on end, making that Christmas day feel like the single longest day of their lives. Thank you! Thank you! Thank you very much. Please subscribe. And it's not just Paul's life, because it says our lives. Our lives. And while it could just be him being small and remembering it as feeling long for him and assuming it felt the same for everyone, I don't know, I just think it's less likely for him to have written it like that in his older age now if it was just him back then, but you never know. Even then, whether it was just him or others as well, it really doesn't matter, so let's carry on. So they eventually got fed up of not being able to continue the game and disregarded it, putting it away to one side, where it would then be forgotten about until 2017, where they're now, let's see, he was tiny in 99, so I'd say 5 or 6, that would make him born around 94 and 95, making him 19 in 2017, okay, right, continue. Where the now 19-ish Paul finds the old game, kind of remembers it, shoves it in an old PS1, tries playing it now with his older and better mind, and is able to catch the pets, thanks to that, and get to the resulting darker side, at which point he contacts Rayner when he remembers that it was him that gave it to them. Perhaps he even asked another family member like a parent or something if they remember getting it, and they agreed and told him Rayner gave it to them, I don't know. And then Rayner doesn't believe him, so he starts recording his playthrough, opening with,
"Prove to you that I'm not lying about this game that I found."
Granted, this doesn't address the 2 years later and the bit about Rayner being dead, but we'll see where we can get with that later. We're still only a minute into our first video, let's get on with this. So Paul says it would make sense in the timeline, which could just be him being weirdly wordy about the whole thing timing well, but it does come before a jump cut, so there could have been more explanation there that's become some of the private stuff that was obviously cut out for YouTube.
It would make sense in the timeline.
Anyway, he talks about having a drawing that he's come home and drawn to go along with an explanation.
I have a drawing that I could scan and send to you. I just came home and drew this big drawing, and it's still, you still need an explanation on, because the drawing is not very clear, but scribbles really, but you need the visual to understand the explanation, right? So you need both.
Now this next bit is a bit of a long shot, but I know from experience that making diagrams of timelines needs a visual element to make any kind of sense, as even for someone like me who denounces visual techniques for stuff like revision, timelines are one of those few things that need a visual part to actually be understandable. So what I'm suggesting here is that you could have explained something to do with the timeline you mentioned before in the cut bit, and now he's talking about a visual diagram of said timeline that he needs to send to the friend to fully explain whatever it is he's explaining regarding the timeline. How this would tie into him having a room making sense, I'm not sure, but I think it has relation to something later on, maybe, I don't know. But in the meantime, after another jump, Paul seems pretty sure something will work before performing a series of movements that I at first thought could be the same as the cheat code from the first video, but, well, it isn't.
I'm about 90% sure that this is gonna work. 10% not so sure, but mostly sure.
Can't win 'em all. Anyway, this seems to work as it triggers an ask box, just like the one presented by the tool, but grey this time, much to his disbelief.
Holy it worked. I mean, I was 90% sure, but it's still a little shocking that it actually worked. That's very neat.
How he knew what to try out to get this, I can't tell you, but I imagine it was either something Rainer suggested, something connected to something in an earlier episode I've missed, or something that came up in a cut section. Whatever the case, it's here now, and he doesn't ask it anything. Another cut, and he finds what seems to be a wheel that spins as he walks around it, but not when he stops.
There it is. Okay.
He then interacts with it, and it triggers another ask box, into which he asks, where is the house?
Okay. So this one we wanna, what do we wanna ask about the house? We wanna ask where is house?
The wheel then spins around without him moving, and he goes off the way it's turning. Another cut, a road, a late camera movement to the sign telling him the house is frozen later. He finds the house. Interestingly, the camera stays at the road, it doesn't follow him over like it usually does. Anyway, he uses that big green key he's been carrying around over his head for a while to unlock the front door of the house, but as we know from episode 1, Paul's character doesn't know how to open doors. Another cut later, and we hear Paul struggling with right and the left and the difference between the two back on the road.
Clockwise, the top is going to the right, and then, the bottom is going to the left. Right, and so it's going to say, righty-tighty, lefty-loosey, or, you turn this thing to the right. And I mean, I still get confused about that.
And he's somehow got the door open.
Well, we have the door open now, so...
Once inside the house, he finds and collects lots of gifts and observes...
people. Appearing and disappearing.
Occasional muffled sounds can be heard in the background, and we see some strange and cryptic text asking where he's been and who are presents for. Paul then finds 2 calendars with some days highlighted in green. By comparing the placement of these dates, we can see that these calendars are for, I'm clearly not the first person to think of this, 1997 and 2000. I'm glad that fitted, I'd be stumped if it hadn't. The years from the old About page. As for the green, Paul spends what feels like 40 years going through them time after time, so we can see that on the 97 calendar, from June 5th through to November 10th, all days are green, which times quite well with the statement he had been missing since June 1997, referring to Rainer, in the old About section. From February 15th through to June 1st, only weekends are highlighted, and from January 1st to February 10th, alternate days are highlighted. As for the 2000 calendar, none are highlighted.
So, these are different years.
Yeah, thanks Paul, we know. Paul then notices the fully highlighted June through November, and it's almost like he's talking to someone else for a few seconds, but like in real time. Not like he was in the first videos where he was talking to the recording, but the recording was forced. It's like he's talking to someone in the present, but we can't hear the other half of the conversation. Although to be fair, it could work in the same way as the first one.
Oh. Okay. I don't know if you got that immediately. Yeah, so June to November.
Then he starts talking about a girl who seemingly went missing. He then says that he, quote, was a kid, and it, quote, could have been in one of those periods where we weren't visiting very much.
Yeah, on that topic, I don't remember meeting this girl at all. I don't remember knowing her at any point. And I remember you saying that we are exactly the same age. I just don't remember even hearing about anyone going missing, right? I don't remember her going missing, remember anything like that. I mean, I was a kid, but even then.
Anyway, he then explains that the start and end of June to November green falls on the day that this girl was reported missing and then found respectively.
I don't know if you can verify these dates, but 5th of June, 10th of November, right, when she went missing and when she was found.
Although he goes on to admit that there was a strong resemblance between him and this missing girl.
I do agree there's a resemblance. Very strong resemblance between us. At
first I thought, how would he know that if he didn't remember her? And then I just realised he was probably shown a photo whenever this topic first came up, or saw it on the news or something, I don't know. It would make sense for this girl to be Care, as we were told ages ago that, quote, Care is missing. Then he moves on to overthinking about the 25th of December on the calendars. I'd never overthink anything like that on the law, obviously. Before theorising about how this works. I have my own theory. Outside the calendars, back in the house, there are the people mentioned before sitting at the TV. I realise this doesn't make complete sense, but hear me out. This could be representative of the family all sitting and trying to play the game that Christmas Day, like I suggested earlier. I realise this doesn't exactly work because this wouldn't have happened yet when the game was programmed, but honestly, I don't know if that's unreasonable at this point. But there's also another figure standing by the Christmas tree, and when one is present, the other disappears. What if one is representing the Christmas 1997 and the other representing Christmas 2000 somehow?
Also, on looking back, there is actually a third figure, which didn't make sense at first, but then I remembered the notice outside said the house had been frozen 3 times, so that's the third time then, unless one of the others is the third time and my theories are all wrong, but I don't know. Yeah.
So Paul's character then goes into the bathroom, leaving the camera to either glitch a little or the footage be poorly cut and edited. Either way, it pans towards the TV, before we are cut into the cramped bathroom to hear Paul comment, "That was an experience."
What? The hell? That was an experience.
Here we can see another of those symbols that matches to one of those backgrounds back up on the gift plane. He tries to get into the bath, it seems, but the game either crashes from this, he did something else that was cut that caused the game to crash, or he manually left the game for XYZ reasons but the footage was cut. Anyway, we then fade to this image for a few seconds before going into a demo that starts by showing the tunnel from the channel icon again. Then the camera drops and rolls into said tunnel and out the other side, where a clock fades, it anonymously ticks for 30 seconds, before cutting to black for a second, and then going round this again, this time the clock ticking for 45 seconds, all the while the camera's still moving, until we reach a disorienting wall and I think doorway, which then takes us back to Paul's character, where he meets and starts to communicate with the Brussels sprout-headed character Marvin from before, who's by a bench, just thought I'd add, and can't spell Paul correctly. They continue to converse before Paul is led to the school, and we are greeted with this image after a little post-editing while the game loads. I'm presuming this is Marvin, but less, like, whatever you want to call his face on the actual character. We then have some walking around and some strange layering and camera behaviour until we get to this padlock on a locker. Some numbers are put in, and if we need to do something with numbers later, then I'll come back and see if it's these, but for now they're irrelevant. Anyway, after they're put in, we suddenly cut back to what we saw before, Paul going into the bathroom, exactly the same, before we cut to the same glitch slash whatever back out of the TV again. We then go into the bathroom itself again, where Paul does exactly the same as the first time until he notices and breaks the pattern by commenting on the only difference. There's no white block with the symbol in the corner. There's also no triangle thing to go up into the bath either, but he doesn't mention / notice this.
Hell. That was an experience. Huh. Hey, I could have sworn I just saw above the bathtub those white blocks with the symbols on them. We were seeing some of those before. I could have sworn I just saw one of those right there.
But this is played out as almost deja vu. Anyway, he goes back out again to find the tree and the people to be gone, but there to be a bucket and a note on a board reading, "My husband may come home after 6 PM. Please stay overnight if you can. Thank you so much." Paul then turns his attention to the calendar, of which there is now only one, which is showing today to be June 5th, and from the layout of the calendar we know this to be 1997 and not 2000. So then he turns his attention to...
The hell is this?
Whatever this is. Walking past it takes him into what seems to be Care's bedroom, in which we can find Care A. This is a different room from a room in the child library where we found Care B earlier. He tries to catch her, but he's unsuccessful because he can't, well, get to her. After some walking around and attempting to get in through the back window, Paul gets stuck behind a door in the room. Some time passes in which he complains to himself, saying, "I know what it wants me to do now."
It's a fun thing. Fun thing that just happened. I can't close doors. I can't open doors either, so I know what it wants me to do now.
What that is, we don't know. But anyway, a little time later, Brussels sprout-head Marvin drops in through the window, and then catches Care A, leaving us with the ominous repeat of the message from one of the first videos, Care left the room.
What? Uh-oh.
The time now at 6:15. Now I don't know about you, but the way I see it, that note in the other room was for Care, written by some woman whose house this is, and she says her husband might come back after 6 PM. Brussels sprout-head Marvin comes in at 6:15 PM, so as far as I can see, this, Marvin, is her husband. Time then seems to jump back as Care A is back on the bed, the air conditioning thing from the window is back in place, and the door Paul was stuck behind is now open again. Paul goes back out of the bedroom and finds sprout-head Marvin back where he was before, but he leaves through another door that Paul can't get into.
Well.
After looking around for him, Paul leaves the house, and after another barely distinguishable image of what seems to be a piano and a chair, he goes around the side of the house and uses a convenient ladder to, after the same image again, do the same as Marvin and drop onto the bed behind Care A, then catch her. Side note, the camera now follows him up by the house where it didn't before. He then pauses the game and we can see the message in the top right corner to read, "I'll come out in a minute, keep playing." I don't know, that's probably significant and ties somewhat back to the previous video in which Paul comments on how he feels the game is trying to make him feel like there's an entity in it and how the best way to know is if it comes out. He goes through to Care's description, which reads, "When the emergency began, you were all looking for Care A. I told you all we would never find Care A. When Care A goes missing, she goes missing forever. My brother didn't want us to find him because he knew we were all looking for Michael A. I'm back. This is my present for you. I started it in 1996 for Marvin. If you think they're worth any effort, see if you can save Care B or Care NLM. Care B is in the school, of course. F you all, and F me as well. Merry Christmas. Check your bathroom now. Raina." This clarifies that Raina is definitely the one who initially made Petscop Starskate in apparently 1996, but that its original intended recipient was in fact Brussels sprout Marvin, as he says it himself, and not Paul and his fellow whoever it was. It also shows that Michael is most probably Raina's brother. But if we think back to the note from the first video, it told Paul that he walked downstairs and when I got to the bottom, instead of proceeding, I turned the right and became a shadow monster man. Now remember how Marvin was a shadow back in the video, whichever video it was, so we can assume that it was Marvin who wrote that note. So what if Marvin is Paul's brother, and after that initial Christmas of everyone trying to catch the pets, he later figured it out well on his own and wrote that note, leaving it with the game, where Paul all this time later found it? Wait, no, that doesn't work. That note also said 13th of the 6th, 97, 3rd of June, 1997, which is obviously before Christmas. Also, no, there's no significance in terms of colouring on that date and on the calendars from before. So we know Raina started the game in 1996. What if he gave the game to Marvin with the second half of the note regarding the cheat code thing, as this was written properly and mostly in lowercase, and then young Marvin scribbled down the first part, hence it being poorly written in block capitals, and using more immature phrases like Shadow Monster Man. I don't know why I said like, that's the only one. Actually, no. I'm getting ahead of myself, but at the end of Petscop 24, we see a birthday message to a Michael. We can assume the
dead kid.
Michael Hammond, from one Mrs. Mark. In this we see she tells Michael to thank your big brother for letting you and your friends play games all day and making you so popular. So we know Petscop was made originally for Marvin, but video 24 ends with thanks for testing before the birthday message. So what if Raina sent an unfinished copy to Michael for his birthday on or before June 13th, 97, putting this birthday message in from going to assume his wife, Mrs. Mark. Then Michael and his... that's Raina's wife, not Michael's wife. Michael was 7. Then Michael and his friends played games, including Petscop, all day, not discovering the darker side of the game. Meanwhile, Raina made a note of the date he gave away the test copy. He later, after working on the game further and adding in the remainder of the dark side, created the website and noted that as well, along with the code to access said darker side. However, he didn't give that note to Paul, Marvin and the rest of the family at first. In fact, he gave them only the game, which they then struggled to play all day as we've established. Then, in 2000, he gave them the note, to which Marvin added his own part about the Shadow Monster Man while he was alone. This explains the rest of the first half of the old About tab and why it lists both 1997 and 2000. Granted, the 1997 and 2000 calendar were already in place in the game at this point. However, again, I don't feel like it's beyond the realms of realism for this game to predict the future. Or perhaps he just gave him a new and updated copy of the game along with the note that Marvin took and Paul was only aware of, in order to later add it to the channel About page. Anyway, that was a massive tangent. Where was I? All this is with some broken static noise in the background, which was nice. He then returns to the other room, where we are greeted for the third time with the phrase, "Care left the room." Following the orders in Care A's description, Paul goes back to the bathroom. After finding nothing in there, we cut briefly back to black before returning to the demo we were in before, walking around the school. This then fades out and we're greeted by a barely hidden image of a piano with a PlayStation controller on top / attached to it, around which there is some kind of red circle object. You know, the ultimate thumbnail trick. This loads us into what seems to be a classroom with Marvin, who tells us to play music for baby, she will become melody, and some kind of triangular-shaped pyramid object appears, with which music can seemingly be played, as it's referred to the Needles piano. Then, look, I know it's a demo, but I'm going to call him Paul anyway. Paul repeatedly plays a melody with the pyramid thing, which is probably Stravinsky's septet for reasons I'll get into later. At first seemingly doing it perfectly, but then starting to deteriorate towards the end, much to the dismay of Marvin, who says, "She tripped and fell and is lost." Which could be referring to Care in some way. Stop. Sorry. Tiara plays bad music too. Do it right next time. Sad. Okay, pal. With that, Petscop 11 ends. Petscop 12 was uploaded January 5th, 2018 and has the same description as the last episode. This time we start in demo mode with Paul back in the quitters room, and after a jump cut he finds himself mirrored by another character who once again has the same body as him, but now has a triangular shaped head. After this not leading to anything, Paul leaves the room and walks back away from it, collecting some gifts on the way. He then passes past another passageway, triggering this dialogue. Hi Belle. Note here that Belle is in the same colouring gradient as Tiara has been, suggesting that they are, in fact, the same person. You're free, accompanied with a rejoiceful... that's not a word. Sound effect. I left these messages for you to look at in case you were ever rescued. So, while you walk around looking for something to do, I'll come up periodically. When the messages run out, I'll be out of your hair forever and ever. After this we cut back to Michael Hammond's grave, still in demo mode might I add. He then collects more gifts and triggers the dialogue. You've apparently been running Petscop non-stop for 553758221 seconds, or 153822 hours. I checked and these times are the same, albeit the latter is rounded up to the nearest hour. Honestly, at this point I'm not sure what to make of this. Hopefully something will help us understand how this is possible and or true and or what its significance here is later on. Looks dubious to me. What do you think? With nothing further on this happening, he walks around some more before passing the very large text reading Good Grief and Alas, partway through which we are met with the dialogue, Can you still look around the room? Is there still a room? So he walks back through the doorway and is greeted again by the dialogue, This is the child library, which then goes into, You're not family, so I didn't add your traits to the face system. That means I didn't add your eyes, or your eyebrows, or your nose. My nose wouldn't fit, mate. Also, yes, the one bit we can understand and don't need explaining is the one bit that gets explained. Thanks a lot, Raina. Now, who is this talking to? At first you might think Paul, but we know the game was originally made for Marvin, so I think we can assume it to be him. As my theory says, the only other person to receive the game separately was Michael, and we know he has a room from the face on the tombstone as we went into it back in video 3. So Paul starts to walk back away from the child's library, and we cut to him walking back up to the new Maker plane and out of the wooden door that Paul waited for opening back in video 2. Once out up there, he finds Marvin, who tells him not to get lost before walking around and away, before stopping and boring Paul into walking away. Another cut and he runs into the dialogue, Happy birthday, Belle. But the next part is cut short after, I'm. Another cut and, I'm calling you Belle because that's who you are. You might be confused as to what happened. Yeah mate, I'm completely lost at this point, I won't lie to you. My only hope is that there's another 12 videos after this one. I was overeager before and started calling you Tiara prematurely. I created a space in the menu for you, still unused now. Then I put you inside the machine and played the second movement of Stravinsky's Septet on the Needles. Yeah, that's where that came from. I played it wrong, but that would have been okay. If you hadn't given up halfway, you would be Tiara. This is not what happened, and now I'm gone. I need some theories. I'm essentially Azzyland without the shock thumbnails at this point. Petscop 13 was uploaded on March 11th, 2018 and has the same description as the previous two. 13 starts us still in demo mode and back in the house with the calendars, and Paul pushes the bucket out of the door, and after the same image as going through the door before, Paul's unhelpful commentary finally returns, him being as eager for something to happen as everyone else at this point.
Looks like we finally made some progress.
He heads down the road again, despite the game still allegedly being in demo mode. Unless he's just commentating over what's already happening and he's not in control. That's probably it, to be honest. Anyway, we come across a blue tool, some kind of black gantry that's like that first welcomed us into the gift plane back in the first video, as well as another of those white pattern blocks. So he catches the tool in the bucket, turning it black, and then he takes bucket and tool within it back down the road, before we cut to him entering back into the house with them. Then the tool seemingly jumps out and we fade to black, and Paul is given 15 gifts, before we fade back in and the tool is gone, as has the quivering whatever it was around what we can now see to be a speaker and some kind of satellite dish. Then we cut to black before being suddenly back in even care, with Paul's unhelpful voice informing us that this is a new game file despite it still being a demo, but who knows at this point anymore? I don't know, I've lost any sense of anything in this game. I'm writing this in a poem, I'm losing my mind, it's been hours, help!
Please help! Send help!
He says he felt like this room mirrors the main room of the house, and he takes the bucket from there and pushes it through into Ronith's room, in which he can finally catch him using the bucket. And we find out that he is Tonith's baby half-brother. So at least he's not Tonith and Randis' child. Rest easy, Pyro.
So could Ronith be the child of these two? Personally, I hope not. I've seen enough Flowey Rule 34 to last a lifetime.
Having gone through his inconsequential description, Paul goes back to Amber and catches her. And we can assume he also caught the others, as he is then congratulated for catching every pet in even care, aside from Tonith, who isn't here yet. Which we know because we know they appeared down by the windmill. We are then told that we have seen everything in the game so far, but there will obviously be more, backing up my theory of test copies of the game. As if it wasn't a test copy for someone else other than Raina, there'd be no point in putting a message saying that this is where we're up to so far. There will be more, so don't waste your time trying to find more, because there isn't any yet. Because he would just know that. It's a growing organism. Your controller inputs will be useful, but your feedback will be even more useful. This further suggests that this copy of the game was originally only distributed to essentially the test audience of Michael and later Marvin/Paul, and Rayner was hoping for feedback and advice to help him make the game and improve on it. We then hear Paul moving around in the background and seemingly moving things. Please leave the PlayStation on when you leave. You can stand up now. There's more ancillary noise from Paul, who says nothing for the remainder of the video, which ends with a thud. Petscop 14 was uploaded on July 17, 2018 and has yet again the same description. The video starts with a handy-dandy green screenable demo icon screen before we find ourselves in a bedroom with a windmill on one of the bedside tables, over to which Paul goes. This windmill vanished off the face of the earth. Let me guess, this background music's Stravinsky's Septet again, isn't it? Here's a similar puzzle, for you, Marvin. There are two pictures of a door. In the first picture, the door is closed. In the second picture, taken later, the door is open. Nobody opened the door. The door did not open itself. The door, in fact, did not open at all. What happened? They're two different doors. Come on, Garoline, you gotta do better than that. I definitely didn't just read that answer off Reddit. That's the only bit of this that doesn't fit my initial disclaimer, by the way. Just thought I'd throw that in. Then there's a lot of walking into furniture that's probably mirroring movements from other points in the series, like with the treadmill and the flower petal picking timing up perfectly, but I don't know. Anyway, we cut to black for a second before cutting back to Paul, finally not in demo mode anymore, back in the house having been inspired by an idea similar to that got him into the house.
I can't just wait. Thankfully, I have been suddenly inspired by an idea that is, in a way, similar to the idea that brought me to this house. Because that idea involved pretending something was there that wasn't there. And this idea involves pretending that this door, right here, this one, is open rather than closed. You can see that it's closed. But what I'm going to do, and what I invite you to do as well, is I'm going to picture in my head that this door is actually open right now.
Okay, Paul, whatever floats your boat.
And if I were to pass through this doorway, what would happen? Would I bump into a door? No, because the door is open, right? I would just keep going into the room that's there. And I happen to know I'm going to walk into the room right now. I'm in the room. I happen to know what this room looks like because I saw it in a demo recording just today.
His use of family YouTube proves, not that it needed proving, we had enough to go off before, but you can never have too much evidence. That shall be Geography's motto. That Paul is definitely uploading these videos himself, and someone else isn't doing it for him.
And you can see it too. I assume it will be up on the family YouTube, along with this video that I'm recording.
Then he gets left and right confused again, and mentions that in the demo mode, the things on the left weren't looked at.
On the right side.
And now we can see that the windmill has been censored for no reason other than to annoy me, I swear. Oh wait, hang on, why are we in demo mode again? Give me strength, I've been at this for hours, just give me some answers, Paul.
To the right, and I think, so if I go to the right, God, I think I went a little too far, actually.
What? Actually, wait, no, this makes sense. That was some edited in demo footage, so we knew what he was talking about. That's how the door was open.
Beds, and if I go up, just keep going up, there will be a question mark that appears that will let me go and do something. And if I press X, something will happen. And what will happen, I think possibly a text box will open, because that's what happens with the windmill, right?
No, that's not text, it's some discs in frames. Like, is this actually happening, or am I going insane from tiredness? What time is it? 8:58? That's not even that bad, what's wrong with me?
Text box appeared with text in it that is probably cryptic, and we don't really care too much about, so we're going to press X a bunch of times to get through all the text. But we can look at it later. And there could be a lot of it, so could be like a book in there, a lot of stuff I don't care about, a lot of it. Or Or it's not a text box, and it could be literally anything else in the world that happens when you press X.
Although, at one point here, he seems to shoo a cat away.
Cat, what are you doing?
I don't know, that's just what I heard.
I'm playing this game too much.
I've been analysing this game too much. So Paul says something about seeing recordings of his own playing from a year ago, and I'll just roll the tape.
So I've actually seen recordings that it made of me from a year ago, and I had not seen that, recording in the time between, so it was holding on to this thing, and it only decided a year later to play back. There are also recordings that I assume are stored on the CD, or might even be scripted. But in one of the recent videos, this was one that went on the public YouTube. I lost the video. I lost it. I had the audio. The game had the recording.
Well, that explains why there was so much demo. So I think what's happening here is Paul is manipulating the system by pushing the buttons while in the house, and he's edited in the demo footage as it's recorded these movements, and he's here overlaying it over the footage of what he's actually achieving in real time by doing this, all in the hope the demo footage will be different as it has been before, and indeed it is, as we can see here. I hope at least one person understood that, because...
Even, there were two parts to this session. It had both of them. It played them back 2 different occasions as demo recordings. I got them, but, okay, so here's the thing. Those demo recordings can be different, right? They can be different from when I was playing. So when I caught all of those pets and it showed the text, that was different from what it showed when I was playing. It showed something, it happened to line up, right, perfectly, same number of text boxes and so forth, and also the music wasn't there in the demo.
I also think that earlier when we saw the demo footage of this room with the windmill instead of the sensor box, he wasn't originally doing that in there, but was in fact back in the other room, and what we are seeing was the demo recording that was of that and was different, and we may or may not have seen what he was doing originally in a previous video, and I honestly don't feel like looking, it's not that important anyway. Point being, he is putting in commands and showing us what he's doing in real time, and overlaying that, the demo footage that is resulting from what he's doing. That demo footage being different, because in the demo, the door into the bedroom is open, allowing him to get into it somehow. I think that's it. That's how I interpret it anyway. We then cut to later on, apparently on his 6th attempt at messing with this and manipulating the demo recordings, now using the bucket. Then we cut to what is the demo replay footage of attempt 22, which I'm just going to let play out here.
This is attempt 22. And I think that's right. Right, now we don't have to worry about that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Now hopefully we got it. Alright, now we're on the scary part. 1, 2, now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So he's been trying to get into that back door Brussels sprout head Marvin went out through earlier, and this time, his 22nd attempt, he succeeds. Through memorising what buttons to push and in what order, like before, only now we are only seeing the resulting demo footage. It's not overlaid on top of him pushing the buttons while stuck in a corner like before. I don't know if that made any sense. I know what I'm talking about. Look, I'm tired, okay? Anyway, mixes around with the bucket, paints a wall where the windmill was, might I add using a paint roller identical to those on cared carpet and walls in the child's library along with the flowers, and gets a key. This is then taken back to the door and through it we go. 40 seconds of ambient later, we're back at boot up, and the Garolina logo is now pointing downwards at a different angle. I don't know, it's probably significant to something. Anyway, after a few seconds we get Paul shuffling around again before he makes himself known.
Here I am.
And poor old him, his save file's been deleted.
It deleted my files.
Oh, boo-hoo! Shut up, Aubrey, you need to go home and get some sleep. So he goes with the only save there is and finds himself at the house on what seems to be Kare's birthday.
What's that supposed to mean?
That's a good question. Those eyes, that nose, that personal attack, that's still you. But what it isn't is eyebrows. Remember all that time ago?
Your wife says Care isn't growing eyebrows.
Paul goes over to the calendar and sees that today's November 12th. I sure hope you've realised by now. I jolly well haven't. It doesn't matter how long you've been gone, it doesn't matter how much you've changed. You aren't lost, stop wondering and come home. That'd be nice. Yes, I'm still writing this at a pub, it's almost 9:30 now. So Paul checks the 2000 calendar and yeah, it's still November 12th. When he goes to check something, presumably how the dates line up, and we hear him moving around again.
Check something. So what I'm thinking is that this is either 1995 or it's 2017.
Well, that's thrown a spanner into the works. Is that the saying? I don't know, who cares at this point. So the green calendar still times up with 1997, with the same green highlights. So anyway, he heads into the other room, the one he used the demo recordings to manipulate his way into before, and... Care, are you okay? You ran straight into the door, did you think it was open? Oh, poor baby. This both confirms Care's age as being low in whatever year this is, and draws a nice parallel to Paul's walking into the door back when he was manipulating his way into the bedroom earlier. Oh, okay, we're going home now. The now darkened room has nothing left on the table and no right table to speak of, albeit when Paul interacts with the former it still behaves as earlier, but now all dark. Then we are suddenly interrupted with, where is the disc, where are the discovery pages, in yellow. If we go with the colour theory, we can assume that last dialogue was Care's mother, and this is from Care herself. What are you talking about? What disc? Discovery pages? Good question, Care's mother. Jill, stop effing ignoring me. Get in here and show me where that disc is. Alright, Care, calm down. Jill.
Morgan, as soon as you enter the room...
Jill, they're behind you, Jill.
No, Care, this is Mummy. This is your mummy, sweetie. I'm right here in front of you. There's no one else here. What are you looking at? What's over there? Care, can't you hear me? Can't you see me waving? Snap out of it. Care, where are you going? Okay, so Care's gone.
I think...
Come on, Paul, what do you think? Spit it out, man.
that was based off of a conversation that I had last year on my birthday.
Oh, alright then. Elaborate?
If it wasn't just a coincidence, then that means I'm, getting pranked, but I don't know how that magic trick works exactly.
So anyway, then the game freezes, and Paul says he's got to call Jill.
I have to call Jill.
So then we find ourselves back at the safe selection screen, as we hear Paul trapped and feeling very weird.
Trapped. I'm feeling very weird.
The grass texture later, we're back at Kare's birthday, and Paul is on about rewriting CD-Rs.
So through Google, I asked the internet, how might one rewrite to a CDR? And the internet's response to that question was, you idiot. You f***ing idiot. What are you doing?
The usual piano image later, and we're back in the house, and Paul goes through that door again, and this even Care-esque image that looks to me like it's from the Wavy and Randis' room, just at a strange angle. Later, we're in the garage, and Paul recognises the website from the note on the screen of the computer that's in there.
Speaking of this is the website. For some reason, it's in the game on a computer screen. But yeah, this is it. And this is the Your Child page. Judging by all the text. Wish I could read it.
Paul, just go on the website yourself, you're the one who had the URL. No, you can't just say you can't read, he's been reading stuff throughout this whole game, he read the note in the first place. The computer itself is branded as Tarnacop, a search for which on the internet doesn't turn much up. Mostly a footballer, some other language, and links back to Petscop in the same way as Carolina.
I have no idea what's going on anymore.
Join the club, Paul, mate. So then Paul tries to go into the bedroom again and is shocked by something before the video ends.
Doing this again.
Number 15.
Petscop 15 was uploaded on July 18, 2018 and has the usual description. The video starts back in the school in demo mode with a strange layering as Paul walks around and goes up some stairs. He starts collecting gifts, but upon collecting a party hat he is taken back to this image, which has this lettering floating around in front of it, reading, Girl. He walks back and continues, but the same thing happens. Each time we hear that this sound is always emanating from it, but only when Paul's got close enough for the text to appear. He goes through a strangely layered door and enters a classroom where we once again find Marvin, not in table. Sit here for the present. So Paul sits down and Marvin goes behind the chalkboard and presumably out of the room the way Paul just came in. We wait here for a few seconds before an audio cue and Marvin re-emerges, now with the figure from the first encounter in the quitter's room. This is Belle. I am Tiara, not Belle. This makes sense, as we've established before, Tiara and Belle refers to the same character, and her arguing against being called Belle adds more sense to the scene earlier when we saw the dialogue, I'm calling you Belle because that's who you are. So we can assume that what we saw then was Marvin talking to Belle/Tiara, who was rebelling against being called Belle, causing Marvin to instruct her that she is Belle and not Tiara, suggesting that Marvin is somehow changing her, but not in the way that you might think. Earlier on we saw the dialogue, I was overeager before and started calling you Tiara prematurely. If you hadn't given up halfway, you would be Tiara. This is not what happened, and now I'm gone. This says to me that Marvin was trying to somehow change Belle into Tiara, but halfway through the process, whatever that process entailed, it went wrong, leaving Belle/Tiara just as she was before, but the process had gone far enough for her to be convinced in her own mind that she was now Tiara, and refuses to believe that she is still in fact Belle, no matter how many times Marvin tells her that she is. But the question here is, what did the process entail? Could it almost be seen as rebirthing? This theory goes further. Way back in video 2 and in Care's room, Paul finds the note reading,
Your wife says Care isn't growing eyebrows. You say that's a puzzle. You're secretly very excited to hear this news. You're in the bathtub, thinking about her. I have a guess at which child you'll pick next.
If we continue the mentality from before of this note being to Marvin, just like the one outside the child library, then I draw the conclusion that Marvin also tried this rebirthing, changing, whatever you want to call it, with Care, and that the process in some way revolves around having no eyebrows or removing eyebrows.
Tiara says young people can be psychologically damaged beyond rebirthing.
Tiara, not Belle. I'm not sure what to make of this, regardless of whether Marvin tried to change Belle into Tiara before or after he did with Care, or whether he even did with Care at all. She was always really Belle, and was never truly Tiara. Either way, Tiara is most probably alluding here to Care, in the lowest of her NLM form as we saw her after her first incident with the flower, as she seems pretty psychologically damaged to me, I don't know about you. Anyway, back in the present. Press nifty. What? Good question. Nifty. No player 1 press nifty. A few seconds later we find ourselves in what seems to be a texture editor, where we see various textures we're familiar with, including the chalkboard, the bricks, this door, and the picture. These patterns are drawn that probably mirror something on the gift plane, and hi is written on the chalkboard. With that we return to the classroom to see the symbol all over the wall, and the video ends. Petscop 16 was uploaded October 31st, 2018 and has no description. The video starts with this image that seems to be the garage of the house with an empty text box and some kind of other object that I can't distinguish. After some seconds of this we are met with the message, no controller input has been detected for a very long time, family, neighbours, police or whoever, keep game console running, call provided number, and then the number itself has been censored. In the background we are met with an emergency alert system-esque alarm sound periodically, and at various points the screen fades to red, matching that around what would be the phone number. We are then met with this room plan, which appears to feature the piano, controller and clickbait red circle from before. There's also a red dot on what seems to be a bed. We then go back to the previous screen before returning to the room layout, then back to the other screen, then a shortcut to black, then back to the screen, then back to the room as the red dot moves from the middle of the room around to what I'm guessing is a seat in front of a TV, and we go for one last second back to the other screen before going to red and the video ending. Petscop 16 plus 1 was uploaded on April 21st, 2019 and has the same description as the new About tab, but with we finished our long Easter egg hunt instead of thank you for watching, smiley face. The video starts exactly the same as the last, but then we close into the menu which reads, the ghost room is a ship in a bottle, obviously referring to that room plan because that had a caption of the ghost room. We then go into the options menu and into sound test, where we cycle through many different sounds, including, interestingly, one called work zone brackets level 2, which must be what was originally intended to come after even care. Also, sounds 4E, 4F and 50 are 1997 calendar, 2000 calendar and 1997 calendar again, because like I said, you can never have too much evidence. Although 51 is interestingly your calendar. We then reach sounds 84 and 85. Care says bye bye and Care says uh-oh, which we hear
Bye bye. Uh-oh.
After a fair bit of toing and froing, Paul presumably holds down on 85, repeating the started sound more times than I would like to count. Until, just when you think your ears can't take it anymore, he switches to 84 and plays it once, which triggers a new menu to open.
Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye. Uh-oh.
All recordings, room impulse, and extra stuff. Paul selects room impulse and we are met with a series of locations, the first of which being called Anna Office, suggesting the owner of the house to be an Anna, potentially the one who wrote that note and as such Marvin's wife. Paul then goes to a second page, selects House and Generation 10 of it before selecting Play. We are then quickly returned to the main menu as the game resumes, first where we left off but quickly changing after that same piano and chair again. I'm going to go out on a limb and say these hidden images are tied specifically to one loading screen each and can't change or switch around. Anyway, here we are met by lots of what are either test players or more likely probably AI or something walking around the room. All the same design as the figure we saw on the other side of the quitter's room mirror the most recent time we were in there. We occasionally switch back to just Paul's character with a balloon and a party hat, and there's this thing in the corner that ticks around and was also in the last video. I'm not really sure what to make of it at this point. I'm not really sure what to make of any of this at this point. Another point to note is that the area now has a background more suited to even care and music to boot. Eventually we're back as Paul, and as the ticker thing settles like this, we're piano photoed back outside, where it's still dark and the triangle head continue to roam. Then we switch back to Paul's character again and the birthday decor outside also reappears. Again, the ticker is in this position, which is the same as it was in the last video, for its entire screen time. Soon the music stops and a text box appears, this time on the left side, reading, "Hi there. Wake up. Wake up. You're free." Paul walks backwards to the road. "There you go. Thank you. I want you to retrace your steps. The family, as usual, wants to learn what happened to you between November 10th and the 12th of 1997. All the while, Paul is walking backwards to where the road now ends, and then back across the grass nothingness. On November 10th of 1997, you ran away from your daddy's school building, and on the 12th you arrived at your house. The question is, where were you on November 11th, and what were you doing there? I hope to guide you to that location with a spell, which I will begin now." The text now becomes yellow, suggesting relevance to care. You are a girl named Carrie Mark, and you were born on November 12th, 1992. You have a mummy named Anna and a daddy named Marvin. Yes! I knew they were together. Called it! Just ignore the fact that I overlooked they were her parents. I got something. An auntie named Jill, an uncle named Thomas, a cousin named Daniel. I know what you must be thinking. Have all these statements always been true? Or have I cursed you? Is there such a thing? A curse that changes your past? Stop thinking. You were kidnapped and spent 5 months studying in an abandoned elementary school that can't decide how it wants its layers to work. You ran away, crying, ashamed, covering your face. You were blind. At some point your movements stopped making sense, bumping into walls and doors, dodging invisible obstacles. Find the moment, when you were led astray on the road. Well, that was a lot of stuff. Another cut and we have more dialogue, back at the bottom now. A girl went missing around here. Story goes your daddy used to sit on a bench with a birthday cake, trying to lure her home. Instead of missing girl signs, he put up birthday girl signs, promising cake to the birthday something, I'm guessing party. Of course, the birthday girl never came home, to his disappointment. When I learned about this absurd story, I spent a lot of time digging. Eventually, I find out what really happened to that girl. Want to know? Ask. Oh, for goodness sake! So I'm going to guess that was Raina talking to Paul. Why him? Well, at the start he said, "your daddy," but then refers to Care, or Carrie Mark, in the third person her. Remember what Paul was talking about earlier, admitting to having strong resemblance to the girl that went missing?
I do agree there's a resemblance. Very strong resemblance between us.
Yes, I think Paul and Care are siblings. Oh wait, that doesn't work with my old theory. Yeah, I'll worry about this later. Let's get through the rest of the material before I put loads of thought into another theory just for it to get debunked in the next video. So Paul triggers that ask box from before and asks it, what happened to her? And something starts rising through the ground, another gravestone with no eyebrows. Paul interacts with it, seeing it to be that of Lena Leskowitz, 1968 to 1997. They didn't see her. Okay. Some seconds later, we cut to later, as Paul finds the trapdoor thing again on the other side of it, and he goes down again. The grass texture later, we find ourselves back here again and still walking backwards. When we get back to the area with the shed and Michael Hammond's grave, the image of the stairs later, we're back at the roads. At first, Paul tries to get himself hit by a passing car, but then walks away and down the road, under the tunnel, leaving us in darkness. This is where the video ends. Petscop 18 was uploaded on April 21st, 2019, and has the same description as the last video, but with "they're kind of scary" on the same line as we finished our long Easter egg hunt, as opposed to the line above as it was last time. The video starts on the hidden menu again, but this time extra stuff is selected. This takes us to the histories of the character designs, starting with Paul's character that we can see here to be called Guardian. An interesting point of note here is that back in video 15, when he turns around, he has this design for a few seconds, not his final design. I didn't think this was significant enough to mention at the time, but hey, the more you know. I'm also pretty sure that this is the only time in the series up until now this happens, although don't quote me on that, I could have easily missed another instance. You then see Amber, Randis, Toneth, who at first didn't have a broken leg, Penn, who at first had legs, another character named Hudson, who I assume would have been in the work zone section of the level had it ever been made. We then see Wavy's design history, albeit none of these designs being what Wavy looks like in the final game, and what is apparently a map of the gift plane, was it ever complete. We then get a nice 16 seconds on the house, which occasionally moves a little bit but otherwise does nothing of note. Even the audio becomes quiet to an extent to which I don't even know if it's there or not, although for a split second you can hear this. Eventually the video ends. Petscop 19. We're getting there. Was again uploaded on April 21st, 2019 and has the same description as video 17. The video starts back in the hidden menu, but this time we open all recordings, which starts with Family 3 before listing many auto recordings of the game, at first accompanied by what looks like an old game cartridge, but then changing over to a disc. After many of these we get to Family 2, and then a sudden escalation to F.
I have no idea how this is better than me seeing it, but we'll crack on.
So something must have gone very wrong with the save before that, or around it, which is none other than Tiara. I feel like this should have some significance, but again at this point I'm going to save theories for the end and I genuinely don't know. Many autos later we see Belle 4 and Family, then more autos, then Care Dancing Sign, then more autos, then Marvin, then more autos, then Will, Wells, Trevor, Tony, Theo, Shelby, Sarah, Sally, Ryan 2, Rebecca, Ramona, Phil 2, Peter, Nick, Nathan 2, Mike 10, Melinda, Megan 2, Mackenzie, Lucas 3, Laura, Larry, Kyle, Kate, Joel, Jessica, James 3, Jack. How long is this sodding list? After lots more names, then more autos, then more names, then more autos, more names, more autos, until we get to just one name. Mike. Michael Hammond. Gen 2 of the game. Mike was given the first copy to test. I knew it. But Paul doesn't select those, he goes down to the very first, one of only 2 Gen 1 recordings. Sort test. This takes us back to the menu, which says, everything is a trick. Well, that's reassuring, as we go back to the garage image from the start of 16 and 17 before we're loaded into the recording. We see one of the earlier designs of the Guardian gliding and moving through assets with arrows on them without so much as a walk cycle animation, or sound. We then cut to Mike 2 being selected and the menu this time reads, there are no changes, only replacements. We see a loading screen different to what we now know to be the final one, before finding ourselves in this room again, only now it has no door through to what we know to be Ronan's room, there's still no walk cycle animation, there's no background design, no music, and the Guardian clips through everything. Nothing is solid. Then we go into the connecting room and find it unfinished with no pets, but some kind of Easter egg. This would make a vague link to the part of the description talking about an Easter egg hunt, although that comment earlier about everything being a trick makes me not so sure. What? One of the eggs was in Daniel's game. Now in video 17 we learn that Daniel was the name of Ker's cousin, and what if Daniel is Raina's real name? There's no offence, but Raina does kind of sound like a code name or a nickname or something. What an unfair trick! Have you found every egg in the office? Then he clips out of a wall and into the white void. Then we cut to a save, Care, Gen 3, and we see there's now background imagery and audio, albeit not the same audio as in the final game. As well as Wavy and Randis being in place, the final design of the Guardian and him not clipping through everything, albeit the room is still not entirely complete. All Care seems to do is paste left and right. Then we cut to a save from the same gen, this one, Belle, and she uses the bucket to catch the pets before going into their descriptions. We then cut to a Gen 4 recording named James 2, in which you can see the player attempt to catch Amber to no avail. Then Gen 4 Phil, which you could say is trying to catch Roneth, although there's no movement of characters. Then we cut to Gen 5 Amber 2, which now has the correct music and basically nothing happens. Then Gen 5 Belle 3 catching Penn and the court message being layered incorrectly behind half the keys. We then see the same congratulations message as before, and the video ends. Petscop 20 was yet again uploaded on April 21st, 2019 and has the same description as number 18. The video starts in the All Recordings menu as Paul selects the Gen 6 recording Marvin. The menu reads, there is so much to discover in the world of Petscop. You're right about that. The recording starts from the Garolina logo, this time pointing towards the bottom left corner of the screen. We go through the initial startup, Marvin selects one of the 3 empty save files and titles it MVM, giving us an initial of a surname to think about later as I assume these are his initials. The game plays through just as we know it, with various cuts and seemingly a long time spent trying to catch Ronith, or so you think. He then enters the controls section of the menu, and we see that right and left are the wrong way round, somewhat explaining the extent of Paul's confusion over the difference between the two back whenever that was. He then seemingly enters the cheat code, as did Paul, explaining why he was checking the controls to make sure he was doing it right, which is what I think he was trying to do in here up until this point, not, in fact, trying to catch Ronith. Anyway, no hidden image, and whatever this is later, he finds himself outside the little brick building. Once there, he walks around just as Paul did, and eventually we switch to an auto-recording, still in Gen 6 and around the same place. Then we switch to another auto, then another, then another, then another, then another. Now we're Gen 7 and starting again from the building, and when this one walks forward from it, it triggers dialogue. Hi Marvin, Raina here.
Hey, Vsauce, Michael here.
You have to be careful this time. If you start running out there without a sense of purpose, you'll get lost. I'm writing this on July 10th, 1997, and Care is still missing. We are searching. Last weekend we almost lost ourselves. Your search is harder. Beyond here, there are no landmarks, but this model of a brick building, though crude, should still be familiar to you. Where is this building? From here, I want you to find a grave. You know the grave I'm talking about. It's definitely out here somewhere. It's unmarked, of course. That's the trouble. You're the only person who can find it. I increased your speed so you can search faster. I feel like this evermore ties the game world to the real world, and perhaps Raina was trying to use it as a copy of the real world to try and track down Care somehow. I'm not sure. I never developed this theory. I just put it out there if anyone else can build on it. Then we got to a Gen 8 auto-recording standing by the trapdoor thing. It opens, and Care spilt crayons later, we're down. A sign simply reads, Roadmap, and another, Caskets. When those are done, they will be great. Anybody who sees them is sure to become part of the family. A chalkboard with red writing. Casket 4, 5 words written on a chalkboard in the dirty building that you inhabit. Whatever this is, Casket 3. After kicking you out of the house, your wife started painting the walls black to cover the stencils. I helped. She made it feel urgent. That Saturday, busy with work, she pinned a note. It contained a list of objects. Would that be this list of objects? Casket 2? How did I know? As I painted, I watched Care dance around the house. She liked to spin. She became a blur. But in that blur, somehow, as she spun around from 45 degrees to 90, to 180, to 360, to 720, blah, blah, blah. I'm really killing the mood here, aren't I? Winding, tightening, tightening. I was stunned by pure horror and disgust. Casket 1? Yup. I wrote that yup before I even saw it, not gonna lie. You showed Care her red blurry reflection in a vase. You said, do you see that? Look how ugly you are now. And this text is in green. Care squinted her eyes. The reflection wasn't clear at all, but as you began to describe her grisly deformities, she began to see them. Nobody wants to see you like this, you said. But she soon escaped, and barely returned home. In her bathroom mirror, she saw a clear picture. Places. The bench? The house. The school. The windmill? Yes, the windmill. Then we cut to the same auto at Michael Hammond's grave. We tried to go back and get Michael's grave message stuck on the screen. Then we cut to talking to Tool, asking, did you find Lena? To which the Tool responds, I don't know. Who is your boss? I don't know. What year is it? The Tool presents a calendar, but he doesn't look at it. Instead he goes looking at the windmill and raises the camera up until we hear the disoriented sound of children talking in the background. He lowers the camera right down until this happens. Like when you connect a camera to a TV and put the camera at the TV, or a mirror. Then the camera turns around and we see another pattern block. The player then goes into and out of the pets menu, and there's interestingly no option to quit the game in here as there is when Paul is playing, suggesting that this player is somehow stuck in playing the game. Speaking of Paul, at this point he pauses the recording, opening the menu around the menu. This is Petscop, not Inception, which tells him that his butt leaves a cavity in the chair. Nice. With this, the video ends. Petscop 21 was the last Petscop video to be uploaded on April 21st, 2019. Its description simply reads, The Sign, with a capital S making it seem more like a title than anything else. The title makes sense as soon as the video starts, as it's just the recording we saw in the list earlier, Care Dancing Sign. The only deeper meaning I can decipher from this video is that these two signs are those reading,
When you're choosing a pet, find somebody that you like. You don't have to love them right away. Don't be discouraged if they run from you. They really do want a home. They're afraid. Show them that there's nothing to be afraid of.
Make of that what you will. Petscop 22 was uploaded on September 2nd, 2019 and has a description reading, in a way, recordings of the power to raise the dead. They're kind of scary. Just like part of the new About tab. The windmill starts on a different Gen 8 auto-recording, asking Tool, where was the windmill? The answer was annoyingly censored. Then there's a cut and we hear Paul talking presumably on the phone, having sent whoever he's talking to the answer to that question. All we know is, there's upper and lower numbers, a 2 involved in the upper, and something looking like a stone. I'm guessing these are coordinates, and at the actual place in the real world, there is something that looks like a stone. And probably a windmill. Paul then proposes to whoever he's talking to that they should go there, and that he believes that he's stopped the recording. I'm just going to play this bit.
How's it going? Yeah, I'm okay. What do you think of that picture? Yeah, so I went up and I typed, where is the windmill? And that didn't work. And so, I tried, where was the windmill? And that's how I got the text in the picture. Yeah, I looked them up. The top numbers, I looked them up. You're gonna want to look them up yourself. Yeah, punch them in. Yeah, oh wait. It's a 2. I know, me too. That was what, first thought. There's not a lot of detail, but it looks like a stone, right? Not yet. Actually, I wanted to go with you tomorrow. That's why Friday. How about that? Okay. No, I'm gonna sit on it until then. I'm not showing the family until I've seen it myself. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not recording. I stopped it. So, what do you think of the bottom numbers? No, they're different. I want to hear what you think first. Yep. Yeah, we would have to find out how big. Like, we'd have to find out how big a tile is. One of the tiles. Like, if we could figure out how big one tile is in feet or meters. What I'm thinking is if we could measure how far away the staircase is, the staircase is from the windmill. The staircase closest, the one that's closest to the windmill. If we could measure how far away that is from the windmill, what I'm wondering is if we could find something there. Yeah, exactly. We could do that. It's unlikely. It's already it's exciting. This is why I'm not telling the family, because it's exciting. But it's unlikely, but it's still worth a try. And what I'm thinking we should do, go and measure the stone on the ground, compare it to the size of the windmill in the game, and then we can use that for conversions, which we can do it based on tiles, how far we can walk in a second, like speed, whatever is the easy way to do what I'm thinking. Sure. And I think it's more likely we could use real life to find things in the game, like the reverse, which we can do that, and then we don't have to like aimlessly walk around to find stuff. That would be interesting, right? If we could take that. That's yep. I know, and I could probably just measure the stone now from the satellite right now, roughly. No, they don't know much more than we do now. They didn't. I don't like talking to them. They intimidate me, and I'm sure they wouldn't intimidate you at all. Have they called you? They haven't called you, right? I mean, Jill specifically, she hasn't called you. No, I didn't voluntarily mention you. She asked because I'm talking to you in the first few videos, right? And so she asked who I'm talking to in the videos, and so I told her, but she didn't ask anything else, so I don't think she actually cares. Yeah, and you don't have to worry about it, right? Because you aren't family, so you wouldn't have a room. That's the thing. I didn't mean it that way. Just you probably don't have a room. That's my only point. Yeah, no, it's fine. No, you don't want her calling you anyway. Like you won't be able to escape if that's the thing. If she were to start, yeah. And I should start taking you up on that offer. Hey, I need your genius. I need your
So here Paul is first properly tying the game to the real world, aside from him talking about not remembering a girl going missing earlier, and refers to a group of people including Jill, who he finds intimidating, and who know whoever this person Paul is talking to is, as it's the same person he was talking to in the first few videos. So to cut the long story short, whoever he's talking to now is who the original videos were intended for. We also know from this,
because you aren't family, so you wouldn't have a room. That's the thing.
That, well, whoever it is isn't family. Paul now has a green key again and is enlisting the genius help of this friend.
Yeah, I need your puzzle genius. No, you're a genius.
He walks back to the other side of the quitter's room. Another cut and some sounds that I swear make him sound like he's in a car or something.
Why would I be in a car? I'm playing Petscop.
Well, okay then. So he goes down the stairs, turns the right and becomes the Shadow Monster Man, before going back to the road and this time being hit by a car. We then hear him complaining that he forgot to start the recording.
Forgot to start the recording.
Which both explains why he's recording this through an auto-recording and not just as he's playing it, and is interesting as it leads him to say he won't like that.
He won't like that.
Interesting. Who's he? I imagine it's the leader of the new Us from the description before. Whoever it is that is now running the channel. And the concern in Paul's voice here backs up the problems with this arrangement and how they may not be as resolved as this description might lead you to believe. But we don't have time to dwell on that, as Belle/Tiara walks onto the road. Then he crosses into a bit of insanity and starts talking to the character with more car-y sounds.
What are you doing there? Why are you just standing there? You want me to do something? Come on, what do you want? I know you're trying to say something to me. What do you want?
Then, with the sound of more movement, we fade into and through the same demo recording as before, seeing the camera drop down and go through the tunnel, and before you know it, you're at a bench and a triangle head has come back and brought this thing again. But then he turns back into Guardian, so I don't know. Anyway, then we find the school nearby and Paul goes in. After this image again, we're in the strangely layered world of the school again, but for once not in demo mode. After some walking around in a bit of a cut, the game goes a bit mad, switching Guardian back and forth to that old design from before and sending him to and from that image again. Eventually, back in control of this, Paul walks into and through the image, and we find ourselves in here, some kind of office. Hi there, sorry for pulling you out of class. I know you've been busy catching up. Don't worry, I just want to talk with you. Hey, do you want to play a game? You can pick any game you want, and we can play it together. Don't like where this is going. Oh, okay, so they're actual games. That's a relief. Grave Robber is kind of like Battleship. Oh, you already know Grave Robber. That's good. I don't like explaining things. But surely you're a teacher. This is ironic as the time my old Spanish teacher told us to stop wasting time. Okay, what's this all about then? I called you several times and you didn't come. Do I have the wrong name here? I noticed you named your file Strange Situation. Is that your name? Please confirm. Okay, this makes sense. I don't like explaining things either, but basically it's battleships, but you can move, dig, or whatever these are, as opposed to just choosing a coordinate and striking it and hoping there's a ship there. Also, the dragging us back to the picture every time we picked up a party hat could be seen as this calling you several times and not coming. Even though it didn't involve a name, it would make more sense if the text that said girl in front of the image the first time had said strange situation, but it didn't, so let's carry on. Are you right-handed or left-handed? You don't know, really? Well, which hand do you write with? That one. That's your left hand. That means you're left-handed. I'm right-handed. I use this hand. My right is actually your left. Isn't that confusing? Yes, this is confusing, but that's an interesting parallel to Paul being confused about his left and right. Anyway, this goes on for a bit. Moving 5 times in a row was a mistake, now I can't retrace all my steps. An interesting parallel to the step retracing back in video 17, but does that add anything more? Not really. Kids shouldn't say swear words. Do you know why? It just doesn't sound right. It's disturbing. You should choose cleaner words, even when you're really angry. If it wasn't for the fact we've just specifically said our name is Paul in this scene, then I'd make the comparison to Care swearing earlier and use that as evidence that this could be her. There's a very big boo-boo on your face. Did I really just have to say that? We're going to help you, together. Everyone is. When you reach for your shoes will be there. When you walk through a doorway, the door will be open. That's another allusion to Care walking into a door earlier, and wherever you go, the floor will continue under your feet. Every move you make will be made valid. Everything you see will become real. Everything you say will become the truth. Nobody has to learn languages, and nobody has to learn about poetry. That didn't work, did it? So then we try and quit the game, and the other player changes their tune saying the game is vile. Alright Karen, calm down. It's okay, you can go. I hope you can find your real house. And with that we're back to this again for the next few seconds, until we get to this, and no hidden image later we're here. And that's it, next! Petscop 23 was also uploaded on September 2nd, 2019, has no description. The video starts on the welcome screen but with no audio, and we're taken into demo mode and met with this, clearly the image from before but not hidden and looking the other way and without the triangle thing. After this we have some more walking around that I assume is still in the school, now with the turquoise green tool over us as opposed to down to one side like it was before. Before we are met with a Garalina loading screen and this entirely Garalina themed area. With whatever this party hat with party hat circling it is. Here we can see more computers with the same logo on as the one in the office, and all with time ticking away on them. Then we approach this TV on which we can see the title Petscop Kids. There are also these numbers above doors around the room. We then deposit this turquoise green tool in the Christmas tree of party hats and fade to black, collecting what I assume to be those party hats, before finding ourselves back with green tool in the now quiet and dark room, with no light coming from anywhere but the Petscop Kids TV. We walk to the back of the room and go through the door, finding ourselves in another classroom, with the same numbers that were above the doors in the other room above other things here, and with the chalkboard with the red writing on that we saw earlier, although apparently we can't see what it says. Yay! So anyway, then we see that Marvin has turned up in the classroom. Pal, what room are you in? At this point we see that each of the numbered wall things is a room layout, just like the one in video 16, but 3-dimensional. Paul looks through all of them, each with a different layout, until he finds the layout matching his video from video 16, which, because Sod's Law, is the last one he looks at. He circles round in front of it frantically to indicate to Marvin that this is the one. Thanks. Here I come. What? No. No. After literal minutes of this... Marvin leaves and, not in table. Then Belle/Tiara shows up. I'm sorry. Help. Belle/Tiara goes to the chalkboard and writes on it 9/2/19, no doubt alluding to the date this took place and was uploaded. Belle/Tiara leaves and Paul follows, back into the last room. Also at this point he noticed the letters on the floor are the same design as Shadow Monster Man Marvin used way back in the video when Paul stared at the windmill for 2 hours. More strange Paul layering later, we're back in the school. And back to that locker again. He inputs the numbers 9219, the ones Bell/Tiara just wrote and the date this was uploaded, and the locker opens. Inside is the egg from video 19 and a note that reads, "Your new life letter. The name, Tiara Paleskowitz. Your message, you are off to school today. I will miss you. I love you so much. I miss you so much when you're off to school for the day. I will be waiting for you when you come home. I will be on a lawn chair in the driveway waiting for the bus to drop you off. Every day I am so happy to see you come home and tell me what you learned. I hope everybody treats you with love and respect. Love you forever, no matter what. Mommy." Well, that was soppy. Although one thing about this is interesting. Your new life letter being addressed to a tiara. This absolutely has something to do with Marvin's failed attempt to turn Belle into Tiara. Like, I really have to say that. Otherwise, I'm completely lost at this point, I won't lie to you all. The green tool makes some noises and we go back to where we left off at the end of the previous video, finding Care's crayons and... Wait a second. You'll find the machine up ahead. This is the only entry or exit. You will pass through this room again as you leave. Keep in mind, everything in here your baby will see. Right, I admit I was getting a little lost and bored then. I am back now! Paul moves the crayons, then some, I think, Play-Doh, before approaching this drop and clearly trying to figure out what to do with it. He pushes this thing into it before moving around this cone, this photo and the crayons, all of which bar the cone he eventually gets around to dropping down there, and a door opens before he can get to dropping in said cone. He goes through the door, and there we find Care B, who he catches. He goes into the pet menu and reads a description. Care B is scared and pounding on the door. I open it, it's so dark that I can't see her, so I pull her out and the light hits her face, and they won't even give me a picture of her now. They're all scattered in graves, and I'm a piece of S. Here I go. And then a shovel glides across the screen. Bloody Nora, this escalated quickly. We return to the game and Paul walks through the back door, entering this red room in which is Marvin and Belle/Tiara. Paul walks over there, and whatever all this is takes all his gifts. They all just stand there, then Marvin speaks. Put baby. Paul understands and puts Care B in this spinny thing, just like the one in the child library. Spin when ready. Time to play, with admittedly the wrong two, but oh my bovril, it makes sense. This is the machine. Paul's about to play the second movement of Stravinsky's Septet on the Needles piano. By the way, I just looked it up and the Needles piano doesn't seem to be a real thing. I just thought maybe it was like a kind of piano that you could plug into a PlayStation in like the 90s or something that never really caught on. I don't know. But one thing I noticed, if we look back at the photo of the piano with the controller, you've got to admit those don't look like normal keys, do they? They look like needles. Anyway, Marvin doesn't seem very happy about this playing and leaves. Paul turns the spinny thing back around and in Care B's place is an egg. Interestingly, not the same egg as in Daniel's game back in video 19. He collects it and reads the item description. That reads the same as the last of the first thing we ever read in a Petscop item description way back in episode 1. You should start thinking about that. With that, Paul gets back out to the school and treks down the locker again, opening it up and depositing that egg inside it along with the other. With that, he leaves the school and walks in front of the bench, where the darkness finally ends and we are taken to this image, the garage door open and the road outside, and with that we cut back to the start screen, but not in a crash kind of way. The nature of it, when you really consider where we are now, we've caught all the pets, Care A is safely with us, Care B and Care NLM are no more, Marvin's buggered off who knows where. The bottom line is, the centrepiece, the very crux of this whole shebang, Carrie Mark, is saved. So it's not in a crash kind of way, it's in a the end kind of way. And that, ladies and gentlemen, was Petscop. Now, only joking, there's another one. Petscop 24 was also uploaded on September 2nd, 2019, and it's the final upload to the channel so far, and honestly, I hope ever. I don't want to get bullied into making a part 3. The description simply reads, now, : This video is simply the Petscop Kids credits that we saw on the screen in the last video, and it's basically all those names from the All Recordings menu presented in credit form, with the most significant information for this entire video at the end, in the form of the message I talked about earlier from Mrs. Mark. Yes, Mark. This is Care's mother. And I bet also Paul's mother, because like I said before, I already said it before, I'm not saying it again. Plus, Mark also starts with an M, and what was the final initial on Marvin's playthrough file name? M. I know we already had established that he was married to Anna, who this is, but you can never have too much evidence. I would go into the fact that this is a birthday message to Michael on his 7th birthday, so his last birthday, but I want to end on a positive note, so I'm just going to throw a load of info at you and how I see it. Carrie and Paul Mark are born on November 12, 1992 to Marvin and Anna Mark. They have an aunt and uncle called Jill and Thomas, and a cousin named Daniel, otherwise known as Raina, who in turn had a brother in Michael Hammond, who is thus also Carrie and Paul's cousin. Daniel, aka Rainer, starts making Petscop for Michael. I know this goes against what I said earlier, but if he started it in 96, Mike would already have been dead, so he couldn't have played it, which we know he did from the save files, and also the birthday message. Getting him to help him test it again and again over time, giving a stable, dare I say, early access.
And no, I'm not talking about early access!
Copy of the game to Mike for his 7th birthday, and letting Anna, his mother, include her birthday message to him in it. 1995, Mike dies, age 7.
That's a dead kid.
Paul and Carrie are too young to understand what's going on. Daniel, aka Rainer, carries on working on the game from 1996, starting with the dark side of it for Marvin, as maybe Rainer blamed him for the death of his son or something, for not being a good enough father. I'm not sure. Either way, Marvin has started to go a bit insane, which causes for Anna to kick him out of the house at the end of the year. Oh yes. Anna was very protective of Marvin, spending as little time as possible with Paul and Carrie, and over time it gets less and less as 97 passes. The green days on the 97 calendar were the days that Marvin was allowed to be with them, as dictated by Anna, until June 5th, 1997. Carrie is home alone with a note from her mother telling her to stay at home overnight and Marvin might turn up later. He does and kidnaps Carrie for 5 months from June 5th to November 10th, the rest of the green days on the 97 calendar. At this point, Michael /Rainer is putting all sorts about this in the game, and then gives it to the family, Paul, Carrie and Anna, on Christmas Day 1997, with the note attached with the date on. The date the game was finished, October 13th, 1997, and the explanation of how to get into the dark side. They spend practically all day trying to figure out how to play the game, making it feel like the single longest day of their lives. Some day after this, Paul becomes the Shadow Monster Man while playing the game on his own, and writes how he did that down on the paper before the game was disregarded until 2017, where Paul finds it and starts to play it, telling his unrelated friend about it and sending the footage, and then uploading it to YouTube as well. Then in 2018, someone else acquired the channel from him, and that's where I ran out of ideas. I don't know, I'll never be able to figure all this out. This doesn't even factor in Lena Leskowitz, unless she's just a red herring, I don't know, and how Tiara relates to Belle, and the fact that Tiara's surname is also Leskowitz, unless she's just a red herring, I don't know, she seems significant. So yeah, you can all come up to your own conclusions, because I am tired, and I need a break. Thank you, and good night. You're welcome, Pyro, I can see why you didn't want to do that.